Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, where you are. Hope you enjoyed the new intro video. I whipped that up yesterday, and just did that on the fly. The song I had in mind to do, that's actually a song that was done with a friend of mine. His name is Mike Hodnick, otherwise known as Kindome. He does a ton of stuff with electronic music. In fact, his one of his songs is the music that I use for my free code session videos that I do on YouTube. Um, Most of his stuff that he does now, I can't listen to. It's just not my thing. It's not not something I enjoy. But we did a couple of, call them albums, group of songs, whatever you want to call it, about 5-10 years ago, and that was one of them. That was a well, thank you, Flash. I appreciate that. Appreciate the intro. That song was just one we actually kind of just did as a jam, and we ended up recording, the just the core part of it and structured it, and then I layered on the bass and the guitar. So it's nice to actually have an intro track where it's your music, you did it, and you don't have to worry about any like copyrights or anything like that. So anyway, this is the new schedule. I'm going to now stick with Sunday morning and Thursday night. I think this is going to work well. I do have a hard cutoff this morning. My wife is doing some training. She is an au pair at a school in the city that we live in, and she's doing some extra training this weekend. So that starts in about an hour. So today I'm not going to be able to keep like going as maybe longer as I want to, but that's okay. The hope is that in the future I'll be able to maybe spend hour and a half, maybe 2 hours on a Sunday morning doing this. So, which is why I have coffee. So what am I going to do this morning? I am planning on looking more at performance in a source generator. This one is called Rocks, the mocking one that I've created, and not necessarily the performance of the generated code. That's valid. That's something I've looked into a lot, and as I mentioned a lot of times, this is the fastest mocking framework out there, according to benchmark MockNet. But I'm now curious to see what can I do in terms of increasing the performance of the generator itself. And so what I'm been looking at a little bit here and there during the weekend is, are there any places that I can see that I can find where I can potentially get some gains? Okay. So if I'm going to switch over to the code here. So I want to run this again. Running this while I'm streaming, not a good idea, but I wanted to do it as a relative baseline rather than running it before I actually start streaming, because I want to get similar numbers. Whenever you do benchmarking, you definitely want to have as much external noise removed as possible. And of course, when I'm streaming, as you can probably see, my camera was glitching a little bit. There's a lot of contention of resources on my one machine here. I mean, I just stream directly from my machine, and you can start to potentially have some allocation and fighting of different processes and stuff like that. So, but what I want to do, at least to start with, is say, well, what is it actually giving in terms of numbers while I'm streaming? When I did this yesterday, I know the number is going to be like 1 point something. Yeah, 1.3. Okay. When I did it yesterday without streaming, the numbers were like the speed was an order of magnitude faster. So if I did that before I started, I would, it would be comparing apples to oranges, and that would not be fair. So I'm going to copy this and just put this as we'll call this the baseline just for now. You mind briefly walking through the benchmark code itself? I'm assuming you like yeah, it is. So that is like this. So what I do is I have a benchmark.net class with a memory diagnoser. And then in the constructor, I just set up as much as I can. I get the driver all created, but then the only thing I do in the actual test method itself is run the generator and see what the result is. That's it. So I want the code to be as focused on the actual run the generator itself and not some of this other, like I didn't want to run this every single time because that's a little bit of extra noise. And this is something I talked about in my last stream, which is what actually is being done in Visual Studio and or the compiler and how often is it run, and on and on and on. This I'm just trying to say, if you ran the generator itself, like if I came in here, trying to just get this to run arguably once is what I'm going for. So okay, so that's the benchmark. What are some things that I can try to do in the next 50 minutes to see if I can make this any faster? So there's a couple things I've looked at, but I haven't actually done just yet. Let's see. So I did do some profiling. I ran a profiler, and I definitely wanted to do that outside of the streaming and just use the profiler in Visual Studio. And what I found were a couple of things. One of them is, did I put that other idea down here? No, I didn't. Let's write that down here real quick. Writer. A lot of these are just thoughts. This is funny. This performance improvements is definitely something that you need to have results. And I remember years ago, I was watching a couple people going over some code and talking about what they think it was doing. And the lead was like, "Oh, I think we shouldn't do this here. My spidey sense is tingling." He literally said that. And, because he thought that was where it was going to be slow or something like that. Intuition is good. If you have it, the more experience you get, the more you're going to look at code and go, I think that probably is something I can improve upon. But you need numbers to back it up. You always need numbers to back it up. So like one of the things that the profiler showed is something like the write lines here. I'm using indented text writer. And so one of the things I'm thinking of is, would it be possible, and again, I don't know if this is actually doable, but would it be possible, instead of write line everywhere, is to maybe just do a write line as much as possible and, reduce the number of times I'm actually calling write or write line. I don't know. I think that's lower on the list, but that may be something to look at and think about. By the way, I thought with some of these places where I'm doing it, interpolate strings, do these incur any overhead because you're putting interpolation on a constant? And as I found out, and what I was hoping for, and the compiler actually does this, it will inline these because it knows it's constant. So it'll actually just put those right into the string itself. Now, of course, some of these that are actually calculated values or something like that, that's where it's going to have to fill in the holes. But these things, they just get basically inline into your string. So that's kind of cool. So that's one thing. Another one is, when I looked at the hop path here, was it the hop path, or what was I using here? Flame graph. Yeah. And I admit this is probably a little bit hard to see, but one of the things I noticed is that create output, that's where you actually say, okay, I'm going to try to create my output. Transform targets is a local method where the first pass that I do in the, where is this? In the generator, is I'm just trying to see, do you have an invocation where the name of the invocation is create? Okay. The second thing I do is I actually load the semantic model and transform targets. And I was always wondering, is this a good thing to do? And I'm starting to think maybe not. It's a little bit hard to see here. I'm not actually very, I want to play more with the profiler. This is why one of the reasons I'm doing this, because I want to get better at this. I want to get better at trying to find out where the actual hotspots are. But one of the things I found out in the flame graph is in transform targets, the get symbol info core method, which is what's actually being called when I do this, seems to be taking a lot of time. And that is something I would rather try to reduce. I mean, I have to call it at some point because I want to get the actual symbol. So in create output, I'm thinking maybe in create output, that's where I would actually use the the model itself. So that's something else I'm thinking about moving in. Okay. So there's that. There's a whole bunch of other things I'm thinking of doing as well. So I want to say, let's do one thing and then run the benchmark tests again. And then let's see, did it actually make an improvement or not? So which one do I want to pick? I think one of them that I'm going to pick first actually wasn't something I saw when I was using the profiler. It's this type to mock. So when I actually get, where is this? Yes. So you may say rock.create and then give a type. And that's all good. But now I actually have to look at the type that you want to mock and say, is it one that I can mock? Because you may be giving me a class that has no virtual members that I can override. Then that's an error, actually. So in this generate mapping method, that's where I use mock information. This is the type to mock, but then what I want actually in mock information is, if I go all the way down at the bottom, this type to mock is not actually, should not be a type symbol. What I want it to be is this mock type, which just has, this is a symbol, and then these three values, because as I'm generating code, I'm getting the name of this type over and over again, but I'm getting it in different ways. If it's generic, I have something that I call flattened namespace. There's three different scenarios that I could be getting the name, and I'm doing this over and over and over again. I'm calling this a lot. So, or at least it feels like a lot. So I'm thinking, if I know, like I get down to here, if I know that I didn't have any diagnostics, okay, actually, I don't have any error diagnostics, then I will actually try to create a mock and generate it. So in that case, what I would want to do is say, and then I could actually use that here. And I'm kind of jumping around. If I don't have any error diagnostics, then I would actually create the mock to type. So it would be a nullable value. And then out here, I'd say if that value is not null, then I would actually go in and create the mock. But then everywhere where I'm using this type to mock and I look through my code, I'm using it in a lot of places. Instead of calling get name with these different enumeration values to get different string values, I would just call the property, and it's already been pre-calculated. Okay, like the plan is to, you can see here, is to call these with the right values. Okay, so the hope is, because I know I'm going to have to do that, rather than recalculate these all the time, is calculate them once and then just use those values. So let's do that. So that is going to be in here. So we're going to say mock type. Okay. Type. Now this shouldn't affect shouldn't affect anything outside of this. In other words, people shouldn't notice this. So shouldn't be in the operative word. Copy this code, even though it's going to be wrong. I'll fix that in a second. So you don't know what that is. Let's do that. I don't know if you can hear my cat. He's very unhappy right now. Let's see. So we want name. We want this dot flatten name, and this dot named with generics is going to be equal to type. Type.get name. You don't know what that is, but now you do. And then we'll say this dot get type dot get name with flatten, and then type dot get name options. What is this? Name of generics. Because wait a minute. Well, okay. I have to hold on. And yeah, I didn't think about this. On type to mock, I'm calling it with um there's flatten. I don't know if I actually ever use because get name when you don't pass in anything. Again, this is just all my stuff. But when you don't pass in anything, that's actually saying that we want it to be with including generics. Like if you look at the name with generics. So there's either name with generics flatten or what do I have? No generics. Do I ever call it with no generics? I'm just curious. Let's see where that. I think that's used more in other places. It's not. Yeah. So, okay. Probably do then is we'll just not have the name here. We'll just have flatten named and name with generics. So we'll take that off. We'll do this. And we'll just call it with type name options include generics. Okay. If we don't need it, there's no point until we absolutely know that we need it. This is where maybe I shouldn't have had a default value and just always made you pass it in. Okay, so we've got that. Come into here. We're going to say that's a mock type. We'll keep the name there, but that's now going to throw all my code into disarray because it's, yeah, you can see up in here, it's thinking, well, you want to pass that in, or you want that to be this. And yeah, we're going to have to, oh, okay. We're going to have to pass in the type to mock here. We can't assign it just yet. And we're going to have to say here, unfortunately, private set. Yep. And here we will say I type symbol type to mock. I'm going to pass in here type to mock. And everywhere in here where I said this, I want to just say type to mock. So we want that in the mock. There. And that takes care of that. All right. So now this is where I want to now do this in here. And say this dot diagnostics any. If we don't have any, then we say this dot mocked. Mock is equal to new, and we pass in type to mock. Otherwise, we would have left a null. And then here now we say is if information type to mock is not null. It means we found one and we can do that. Now that fixes that. There's going to definitely be more places in the code that we've broken. For example, if I try to compile this, there should be errors galore. And there's 38, and that's fine. That's what we expected. So we just got to now pump through these one by one. So here we would say, instead of that, we'd say flatten name, right? We already have that. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. One of Another one of the problems. It's like, is it null or not? And I have to now assume that anywhere within the code, it's not null because I made the check, but the compiler can't flow that all the way through. So I just have to say, yep, shut up. Just shut up. This is, if it didn't pass anything in, it would be name of generics. Yep. Yeah, we'll just keep knocking these down one by one. And this would be flat name. I probably could do a search and just get rid of all these one by one. I want to be a little bit more meticulous with it than that. And that's got to be that, right? Oh, the type. There we go. Okay. And same thing up here. Okay. Hopefully this will get done before I run out of time. This is now, well, let's do this because now we can at least say we have confirmed that it is type. It's flatten name. This is with generics. Generic name. I might, I actually like that. Called generic name. It's it sounds kind of weird too, but genericized naming is hard. I didn't like the inconsistency of generic name. I don't know. Oh, this is now needs to be a mocked type. And this is generic name. This is flatten name. Same here. Here's the thing, when I finally get done with all this, might find out that all this is kind of for naught. Um, this is the flatten name. Because I really didn't see it show up in the profiler. That being a wait, what did oh whoa, 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 whoa. I don't want to do that. Um, I mean I could save and probably would be a good idea to what are you doing? Not that. I'm saying close. Oh. What? Why did um close is control F4 now for some reason? I don't know. Why did that happen? Because I feel like the keystrokes that I want just they kind of fly away a little bit. Let's just say save for now. I won't commit the diagnostic session in Git, but I don't want that up right now. Okay, so let's go back to our errors. Okay, Jason. Oh, this needs to be my type. And that's going to be there's his name. I would think that this would help a little bit. I mean, assuming I'm not screwing up everything. Yeah, you want to be Sure that it is not null. E3. No pressure, Jason. Let's get this all done. And then that type, same thing up here. Seeing as on Thursday, I'll have all Thursday night to try some other things out. I guess this is Latin name. This is name. Oh, there's a bunch in here. Okay. And watch somebody. Wait, what did I? Watch somebody just change a whole bunch of code this morning. It'd be good from a neatness standpoint just to make a local variable. And what was this? And one more up here, and then we think probably got about 10 left. Okay. 11. Okay, I was off by one. Off by one errors. Generic name. Yeah, if you're doing that. Still 11. Feel like you just didn't accomplish anything? Oh, it's catch up or something. I don't know. 6. 10. 2. 20. I don't know. Wait. Oh, yeah, now shut up. And you need to be on the type. Generic, so this would be generic name. There. Now how many are left? 5, 6, 2, 20. I don't know. This would be generic name. 4. Don't add extension. Oh, you need to be type. There you go. Now what screws up down here? Generic name. It'd be funny if I do all this, performance actually gets worse. Generic name. And yeah. And then this. And things in here are going to break because of reasons. I'm hoping flattened. You say there's no errors, but I don't believe you. Okay. I'm going to shut down and start up again because I want to make sure my integration. Well, actually, no. We can do the tests here to run these because these don't require, they're not actually loading the project as a generator. So these are just saying, give us the text. So we don't have to shut down and start up again. If these pass, which I'm hoping they should, nothing should really change. But of course, how many millions of times have I should have had ever since I've been creating videos like a board over here. And every time I tell people write tests, this is why, because you can make changes like this and have a high level of confidence that either nothing broke, or if it did and nothing did break, yay, that you didn't screw anything up. But if you did, you'll be able to find it out right away. I don't know how many times I'm going to say this, and I will keep saying it. Write tests. I don't know how you can code without it. It boggles my mind. So hold on. I got to load the project again. So I might get a little skippy here in my video because, processing. I've been actually toying in my head about getting a desktop and using that for in my office and streaming and whatnot. Maybe that will help with, that little bit of stuttering you see when Visual Studio is loading. Okay. So now let's just say run all tests and let that grind away for 30 minutes. And then if all the tests work and everything else, then we'll run the benchmark tests and see, did that help at all? Did we see any improvement with speed or memory usage or anything? If not, well, there's other things I have on the list that we can try too. So all is not lost. Looks good. I mean, one's still running, but there's a gargantuan test in there that basically says try to find all the mock types, not in the BCL, but in those core libraries, and just try to write a mock for them. So looks like it's funny. It says they all passed, but it's still not quite done yet with running all the tests. So go figure. I don't get that one. So are you done or not? Yeah, you're done now. Okay. So you know what? I'm curious if I did this. One of these up. And now I right click on that. Oh yeah, close the still control for. I thought it was well, yeah. I don't know. Maybe I was doing control window. I don't know. Old guy here with old keystrokes in his head. All right. So now let's run this. And hopefully it's just a little better. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if this is any better or not. I'm hoping it's a little better, but I don't think this is where the big win is. But if it gives me even a little bit, I'm going to keep it. So I need stories. I need stories while I'm running benchmark tests. Although this one seems, once it finally actually gets going, it seems to be fine. By the way, I tried to run the profiler against this with benchmark actually running. Okay, what did it give? Not much of anything. Well, you try stuff and you realize it maybe saved a little bit on memory allocation, just a tiny bit, but it really didn't do that much. Yeah. But I mean, any little bit is better, but this is why it's not just enough to look through the code. This is, because I shut down, start up, again. I want to, Good that I saved that. This is why you use profilers, because your intuition may not be correct. And you do want to, I mean, you may see something that is really obvious in code and go, okay, that's what I want to look at. But it's really worth doing this, because this is going to tell you these are where the hot spots are. Okay. So the other thing I was saying is with benchmark.net, when you run the process, it's actually creating another, I think you can actually see it, creating another solution, not another solution, another project. So if you come up here, if you go to performance bin release, I believe it's one of these. Yeah, you can see here, if I say, let's open this with Notepad. So I don't know, not CS file. Okay. It's actually using an XPRO. Yeah, that's not even a thing anymore. It hasn't been a thing in years. So what is this? Why doesn't it give me the option to say Notepad++? So this is what it's auto-generating to run my benchmark code. Dummy one. Well, why not? Okay. I've actually never looked at that. Cool. But that's what it creates. It creates this, and then it actually builds this. There should be release in here. I don't know, it gives you a config file. Sure. At some point, it actually builds this and runs what's here. I believe that's what it's doing. If you try to profile this, it doesn't work. So if I was over here and I had my program here and I say, do this, it didn't work. I didn't get any information. What's an xproj? Well, I think that was back in the .NET Core days, like when it first started. There was the project structure. Find something that talks about this. Let's see. This article talks about it going away. Yeah. I don't know if this is the greatest article for this or not, but it seems like it's reasonable. So I'll put that in the chat. So when .NET Core is starting to be a thing, one of the things that they were doing is actually, instead of having a project file format that was XML, they were going to have an xproj file format that was all JSON. And a bunch of people, and I will probably say me included, didn't like that. Why make everything JSON? So, which in retrospect probably was not that big of a deal. But what they ended up doing is making a CSproj file format that was XML, but was much easier to, like, you could edit it. You didn't have to go through project settings and Visual Studio and all that other crap. It was a much easier format to use. So, yeah, it's something that, if that's what it's referring to, that's something that's long gone and nobody does that anymore. So anyway, but yeah, you can't use a profiler against it because it's actually launched in another process or something like that. And there is a way in benchmark.net to say, I want to run this in process. I'm not going to do that here right now, but when I first ran this, I'm like, oh crap. So then I just made a simple for loop and just said, bash the crap out of this and let's see what it comes up with. What I'd really like to do is something like this, so then I don't have to switch to something like this when I want to do some profiling, but then have this be in process when I want it to be. Anyway, So this one, like I said, this one seemed to be, when you're doing your transform target, it was like, if I expand hot paths, it was this get symbol info core. Excuse me. Now, if I look at my actual code in rocks, let's see, generator. Like I said, the first pass I do is I just look to say, does that invocation, does it have the name recreate? That's all I do. The second one, I wanted to get more specific and say, okay, well, we know we have an invocation that might be what it is, but is it really the one that we want? So what I want to do, that's why I got the semantic model, and that's why I'm loading the invocation as a method symbol, because then I can look and say, well, does it actually match one of these two possibilities? And if it does, then okay, that's probably what we really want. Now, probably it is what we want. But the problem is in create output, I think that was, no, is that true? Like when I get to create output, I then would have to load the semantic model. But the semantic model can only be, well, you can do that here, right? If I say compilation, get semantic model, and then you can get it for a specific tree, which would be off of a syntax node. You can say what tree it's from. So you could load all the models per node. And if we narrow down the search here enough to say, is the thing that it's actually being called on, is it called rock or rock repository? Then that would make this much faster. It wouldn't necessarily stop, you from saying, well, did somebody just do like rock.create? I would want to see, does it also have a generic in here as well? But do it all with the syntax nodes. So I don't ever load this, I don't ever do anything with the semantic model here until I get down to create output. Of course, I still got to do it at some point, but I'm thinking here is probably the right spot where you would want to load the semantic model. And this is something that I've struggled with source generators. It's like, what are best practices? But what are some good rules of thumb? What are some things that you should do or should not do? And have that be spelled out, documented out to help people, help developers go, either do or do not do this, or definitely avoid this for whatever, and for why would I want to do something or not do something? Have good explanations around this. I've said I love source generators more than I hate them, but there are some things about them that I just find more problematic than it should be. So anyway, that's a rant. I don't think I'd be able to get this done in the time that I have, but that doesn't mean that I can't at least try to look at some things. So if I did, so tests somewhere here. That's fine. And bring up the handy dandy syntax visualizer. I say here, that is an invocation expression, but that's actually this whole thing. Yeah, because that's the equal values clause. That's the invocation expression. It's the whole thing. And we wanted to see, does it have a simple, this is the identifier for just create, right? Or is it rock? No, that's rock. Oh, the generic name. And then you have a type argument list. So, yeah, I don't believe. Do I know my own code? I think I could look at the invocation expression and say, find is that part rock? Is that part create? Is its argument list 0? And does it have a type argument list? Because you have to, the type argument list I found out was nullable, and it made sense. I did this in a previous video because you may or may not have a method call that is generic, but does it have a type argument list? And if so, does it have exactly one value? And so I could do that in the generator here. And instead of loading the semantic model for all these, narrow it down, because honestly, this isn't good enough. Like if I look at the invocation expression, say name, identifier, text, is a create, there could be more than just rock create. This probably narrows it down a significant part, but here we'd want it to be even more. So yeah, I could probably do that here. And then what would I be doing down in create output? I would now no longer be getting a tuple of syntax node and a type symbol. I'd just be getting an array of syntax nodes. And then I would want to, for each syntax node, load what I'm doing up here, which is loading the symbol information and saying, is it a method symbol or candidate symbol, blah, 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 do that there. And then have these done once outside of a for loop. Have these outside the for loop, make sure that the comparison is correct. But even before I do that, I could have like a hash set of method symbols and say if I've, well, no, I don't want to do that. Not the method symbols, the type symbols that I find, like the type argument here, put that into a hash set. And then say, if I found this before, like I have a bunch of tests that are mocking out one type, I don't need to keep doing this over and over again. I just need to do it once. All right. I will not be able to get this done today because just I'm again under a little bit of a time crunch this morning. But I'm not going to do this off camera. I really want to do this on camera and do all the rework and see if it helps or not. Yeah, no, never mind that. Like I could run the profiler while I'm streaming, but that would suck. But I want to do this all on camera. So I'm going to hold off on actually doing any of the work just right now. I'll probably sketch out in some notes what I want to do. And then in the next stream, which will be Thursday night my time, I'll plan on actually doing that work and seeing if that improves anything or not. And again, this should be like, I'm just changing transform targets and I'm just changing create outputs. So this should be like, none of my tests should actually fail. I'm not changing anything with the actual generation of code per se. So I shouldn't have any of my tests fall apart. Okay. But that is all I'm going to do today for the stream. So, thanks for everybody else watching, like, subscribe, follow, all that good stuff. And Thursday, I will be doing more of this performance stuff in Rocks, and I will probably start around 8:15 p.m. Central Time. So thanks again for watching. Take care, and I will see you later.